The Speaker has declared the sitting open and in session. Which I have heard.
Honorable members, I declare this sixth sitting of the National Assembly of the 12th Parliament of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana to be duly constituted and in session. The clerk will now lead us in prayers.
Almighty God, we who are here gathered together, we most humbly beseech thee to guide us in all our consultations, so that we may together build a land where knowledge is free, where the mind is without fear, the head is held high, and where words come from the depth of truth. Grant us, O God, an aid and guidance, so that we may deal justly with the several causes that come before us, laying aside all private interests, prejudices, and personal preferences, so that the result of our counsels may be to the glory of thy blessed name, the maintenance of true religion, the preservation of justice, the safety, honor, and happiness of the President, and the peace and prosperity of Guyana. Grant us, O God, a vision so to lead that all the people of this fair land may enter into that state of brotherhood and unity, with a mind that is empowered by thee, with ever-widening thought and action.
Please be seated.
Messages from the President. Announcements by the Speaker.
Honorable members, first, my salam, my pranam, God's best wishes to the Honorable Minister of Agriculture on his birthday today. We pray that all the choicest blessings will descend upon him and that he will continue to serve the people of Guyana. Honorable members, before we start today's business, I want to bring to your attention a few observations of mine which are serious. We have allowed quite a bit of it to pass. But as we proceed henceforth, we will have to abide by the existing standing orders and conventions established by rulings of speakers and by conventions established by other parliaments which are well entrenched in documents which guide Commonwealth parliamentary procedures. First, I want to bring to your attention criticisms of rulings of the Speaker in the media is not allowed. Standing Order 46 speak to this. If there is a question with respect to a ruling of the Speaker, there is a procedure to follow, and that ruling could be fully ventilated in the House and not in the media. Honorable members, I had 2 days ago to make mention of a very offensive post by an honorable member, and that post is still up in and on social media and on his page. And I'm asking the whips, pleading with them to speak to their members. I expect that after this announcement with respect to that social media post, there will be positive action on behalf of the member. I want to say that breaches of privilege is a serious offense. And while we do exercise fairness and patience and impartiality, we have to be guided by the rules that exist. I am also guided by one of the most respected clerks in the Commonwealth, supported by parliamentary staff who I personally know have been serving Parliament and the people for decades. I also want to bring to your attention that displays in the House, and I remember this as if it was yesterday, displays in the House are not permitted. And these are from several rulings by speakers that go back many, many years. Third, as we continue to debate and hear from many new members of the Assembly, I want to remind them and us that certain language is unparliamentary. For example, shut up, shut your mouth, lie, and imputing motives on behalf of another member of the House. All these are well captured in the Parliamentary Handbook, I think page 67, and in several other standing orders. Mr. Clerk?
Presentation of petitions, presentation of papers and reports, etc. Reports from committees, oral questions without notice, questions on notice, statements by ministers including policy statements, personal explanations, requests for leave to move the adjournment of the National Assembly on definite matters of urgent public importance, motions relating to the business or sittings of the National Assembly and moved by a minister, introduction of bills, public business, government's business.
Honorable members, we will now resume the debate on the budget speech for 2020. The first speaker today is the Honorable Ms. Annette Ferguson. Honorable member, you may proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise from this side of the House to give my contribution to Budget 2020 under the theme, A Plan for Prosperity, presented to this Honorable House on Wednesday, 9 September 2020. Mr. Speaker, I join with my colleagues on this side of the House in expressing congratulations to you on your selection and appointment as Speaker. In the same breath, I offer congratulations to our new cadre of members of Parliament and those who returned on both sides of the House. I do look forward to us working in the interest of all Guyanese to realize the good life APNU and AFC advocated for under the astute leadership of His Excellency David Arthur Granger. Mr. Speaker, you will agree with me that the debates on Budget 2020 being done at a time when our nation is still experiencing high racial tension after the 2nd of August 2020 declaration of the general and regional elections, of which many Guyanese are still unhappy and shocked of the results after the national recount, which has proven massive electoral fraud. Also compounding the aftermath of this election's saga is the gruesome killing of the Henry cousins, Joel and Isaiah, and also the death of Harris Singh of West Coast Bobis, which has grieved every compassionate heart in Guyana and further afield. To their parents and relatives, I express my condolences. As responsible legislators and representatives of constituents and constituencies, we must ensure that justice is served. The families must be given the assurance and the commitment of our efforts to ensure justice is not delayed nor denied. These murders should not add to the current statistics of cold or unsolved murders. At this time, Mr. Speaker, I would remind the Honorable House of the vision of His Excellency Brigadier David Arthur Granger on a united Guyana, where we live the reality of our national motto as one people, one nation, forging onwards one destiny. To ensure the manifestation of this vision, Mr. Speaker, after the May 2015 general and regional elections, he created the Ministry of Social Cohesion with the mandate to ensure cohesiveness, healing, and reconciliation at the individual, community, and national levels in our nation. I have recognized with concerns, Mr. Speaker, the abandonment of this critical ministry and the non-allocations of funds in the 2020 budget to forge unity in other sectors. This proves that this illegitimate government has no interest in bringing Guyanese together. And I repeat, this illegitimate government sitting on the opposite side of the house has no interest of forging unity in this nation. Mr. Speaker, this 2020 budget before this house for our consideration is one deemed by the illegitimate People's Progressive Party Civic the biggest budget and an emergency one. In my close examination of the budget estimates, I am gravely disappointed. How can a party in government boast about caring for its citizenry, and yet little or much attention is given to address the global pandemic COVID-19 that is ravaging our very small population at an approximate mortality rate of 7.8 per 100,000 population and a case fatality rate of 3%. These numbers are quite alarming for our country. Prior to this government ascent to office, Mr. Speaker, they deemed the effects of this pandemic a hoax on Guyana. They showed little or no interest in working with the then coalition government when invited to identify nominees to sit on the National Task Force for COVID-19 response. Mr. Speaker, the nationals' interest was never their priority. They refused, just as they did on many state boards. They disbanded the National Task Force for COVID-19 response and created something which we are living with today. The daily statistic reveals an increase of cases, which unfortunately included members of his honorable house. Mr. Speaker, the nation expected the implementation of a robust plan on their assumption to office to combat COVID-19. Guyanese are yet to see the plan. Due to their incompetence, I will recommend that this government use the daily case reports to implement strict containment measures to curb the rapid spread of the disease, as is done by the recently re-elected prime ministers, that is, of Trinidad and Tobago and Jamaica, respectively. On the other hand, Mr. Speaker, during the past few days, the members on the other side boasted that this budget before this House was completed in a mere 21 days. Mr. Speaker, this announcement came after repeated reports that the Treasury was empty. APNU AFC squandered the money, yet we saw money spared to Gaisuko, a non-performing sector in the tune of $5 billion. Monies were also distributed in a few select communities for COVID-19 relief. The question I will ask, Mr. Speaker, where did the monies come from? Mr. Speaker, this budget has nothing for the ordinary man. There are tax exemptions and concessions for the private sector. Mr. Speaker, it is known to this House that many private entities are indebted to this country by failure to pay taxes. Some of those same delinquent taxpayers are now advisors to this government. Mr. Speaker, it is a known for taxation must be balanced to ensure all essential services are adequately budgeted so that this country can develop on a level playing field. Mr. Speaker, my view and that of many will not in any way be impactful, can only be described as a profit private sector budget, or a term being used. The budget is neoliberal colonial. Simply put, it's for the elites. The presenter of Budget 2020, Honorable Edgell, in his introductory remarks and other sections in the budget speech, has failed to lay out his government's 5-year policy or to break down how Budget 2020 will actualize into prosperity. In my view, I see Budget 2020 as a plan for punishment. Sir, it will be remiss of me not to remind Guyanese that during the APNU AFC administration, 5 budgets were presented to this nation by the then Minister of Finance, Mr. Winston Jordan. These budgets were people-centered. They focused on ensuring the fulfillment of the good life for all Guyanese. Mr. Speaker, on the APNU AFC ascent to the leadership of this nation on May 2015, the first well-thought-out budget was presented on 10th of August 2015. It provided Guyanese with a clear vision, themed, and I quote, the good life in a green economy, unquote. And this is referred to in section 4 of page 15. Mr. Speaker, Image 2020 was a reflection of the APNUFC government's confidence in our people to function with a one nation mindset and to build this great land of ours to the benefit for all, despite race, ethnicity, religion, or creed. It envisioned sustainable socio-economic development, good governance, and human safety within a green economy. Under that administration, we are all tasked with realizing the vision of a good life for all who live within our nation. And we, the APNUFC coalition, over the past 5 years, have set the foundation for sustainable socio-economic development, good governance, and human safety in a green economy. Mr. Speaker, I will now share with Guyanese across the length and breadth of our 214,970 km our vision for the cooperative republic in the year 2020 by comparing Budget 2020 presented by this PPPC administration. Sir, it lacks vision, it lacks futuristic capabilities, and is totally out of reach for the ordinary man, which we on this side of the divide consider to be the real man. Mr. Speaker, I had the distinct pleasure in serving as minister within the Ministries of Public Infrastructure and Communities, with responsibility for housing, respectively. For the purpose of my presentation, I will briefly share the coalition's achievements, since we are being lectured by the honorable members on that side of the divide that we did nothing, and they have inherited poor infrastructure. Sir, all of us in here and many Guyanese have testimonies of the coalition's 5 years stewardship. The honorable members on that side of the divide should continue to bury their heads in shame. What they failed to deliver in 23 years, we were able to do so. My colleagues, in their respective presentations, highlighted many of the coalition's achievements in 5 years. But Mr. Speaker, as I'm on this point, allow me to quote the famous biblical verse taken from Matthew 7, verse 5. Thou hypocrite, first cast out the beam out of thine own eyes, and there shalt thou see clearly to cast out the mote out of thine own eyes. For my presentation, I will briefly highlight a few achievements under the Ministry of Public Infrastructure. And I know my colleague, the Honorable David Patterson, he will delve deep into his presentation. But Comrade Minister, Comrade Speaker, I want to let you know that prior to my leaving the Ministry of Public Infrastructure, we would have done tremendously well in the aviation sector. We would have done well in the maritime sector. We would have boosted staff at the Transport and Harbors Department, because I think on Monday we heard that when the illegal government came to office, transport was in the red, but we inherited millions of debts from the People's Progressive Party Civic when we came to office in May of 2015. Mr. Speaker, I wish to draw to this House attention a comment made by Honorable Indar. I don't see him here as yet. 3 days ago, the honorable member reported on the Sea Defense at Content Myconi regarding the performance of the following contractors: BK International and M&D Construction. What the honorable member failed to tell us is that both contractors are executing the same measured works. However, BK is being paid $70 million for every 100 km, and M&D is being paid $168 million for the very 100 meters. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, it begs the question whether the additional 100 million does constitute corruption. Grateful for the honorable member to respond. Mr. Speaker, I now turn my attention to the Ministry of Communities, the Department of Housing, for which I had a short stint. But Comrade Speaker, it seems to me that the honorable member knows a lot. I don't mind giving up 2 minutes of my time for him to say how many house lots I have. He has 2 members who are serving ministers in the Ministry of Housing, and the evidence is there. Mr. Speaker, when we came to government in May 2015, there were major challenges in the housing sector. But because of the decrease in in the government subvention and the sale of lands to private developers. We were able to still provide many units by way of housing units and also house lots. Though, and I need to quote from this report, sir, though we were constrained as mentioned above, the Central Housing and Planning Authority was still able to provide housing solutions in the form of house lots. Yesterday we were told, no house lots, no housing units. We didn't give to the benefit of more than 7,000 households. This showed the commitment of the agency to deliver to the public, even with the challenges the agency faced. These lots were allocated mostly on the coastal regions of Guyana, with the majority of the allocation in Pomeroon, Demerara, Mahaica, Region 4, Mahaica, Berbice, Region 6, and East Berbice, Quarantine. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, we further heard that the APNU, ASC government failed to develop housing areas, new housing areas. But I want to share with this Honorable House the following areas that were developed under the coalition government. Plantation, Reg Dorsey, 25 lots. Parcel 123125 Providence, 1,258 lots. Section D, non-parallel, 30 lots. Plantation, Providence, 97 lots. I will not seek to derail the house further, but to say that we were able to
Comrade Speaker, the honorable member was forced to discontinue her presentation because she's being distracted now. It's not heckling, but it's rather shouting from the honorable members. Could you please address it, sir?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, over the years of the coalition government, we were able.
Just give me 2 minutes. We are getting some technical problems with respect to my mics. I just want to appeal to honorable members to conduct themselves with decorum. Proceed, honorable member.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, when we took office in May of 2015, between May 2015 up to the time we demitted office, we were able to hand over 27 housing areas to the respective local authorities. Okay. 27 housing areas to the respective local authorities. In Region 3, we handed over 6 areas to the LAP, Parifate, and Good Intent NDC. In Region 4, we handed over 30 areas to the Haslington NDC. In Region 7, we handed over 3 areas to the Baltica municipality. And in Region 9, we were able to hand over 4 areas to the local authority area. Madam Speaker, this is evidence that the coalition was committed to the empowerment of local democracy. Comrade Speaker, as I was preparing my budget presentation, I was able to go to the answer of Thursday, 27th of January 2011. And I recall my honorable colleague in 2011, the Honorable Aubrey Norton, asking the question whether proper planning is impossible under that administration at that time. Since it had no plan use, it is well high impossible to have a cohesive housing development plan if you do not have a proper land use policy. Mr. Speaker, it gives me great honor and pleasure this morning to report to this National Assembly that the Central Housing and Planning Authority was able to conduct a planning forum on the 28th and 29th of March 2017. And the critical output from the two-day forum was the submission of the National Planning Forum report by Christopher Toppin who was the facilitator. This report discussed the evaluated Guyana's existing planning system and highlighted the framework for a reformulated planning structure for the implementation. Further, the report provided a proposed action plan that itemized priority areas for implementation. Mr. Speaker, we were also told that there wasn't any national housing strategy, and this was far from the truth. This was far from the truth, Mr. Speaker. We were able, as a concerned government, to conduct an assessment of the housing sector to determine what is causing many unoccupied lots, and because these are lots that are areas that we would have inherited from the People's Progressive Party Civic. And these were the challenges facing the Guyana's housing program, of which my friends on the opposite side of the House are well aware of. Low take-up in housing schemes, cost of financing, inadequate public infrastructure and services. The need for a strategic planning, and I've just referred to a document that was done in March of 2018. The need for a revision of the current configuration of processing applications. But Mr. Speaker, I wish to bring to this honorable House attention that we heard over the past couple of days that the government did absolutely nothing for the housing sector. But when we took office, we met many houses that were constructed at 1,000 homes. They're in perseverance, were unoccupied, they were defective, and we spent billions to fix those houses. But comrade minister, comrade speaker, allow me to say this too, that many of the housing schemes that we inherited from the People's Progressive Party Civic, I need for you to take a drive to Tushen on the east bank of Essequibo. Take a drive to Diamond. Take a drive to Westminster in Region 3. Take a drive in Eccles, and you will see the deplorable state of roads. That is why, Comrade Speaker, many of our people would have failed to start the construction because of the poor infrastructure that the People's Progressive Party Civic would have given to them. The other thing, Mr. Speaker, when we came into government, the former president, Mr. Granger, knew exactly what he was doing when he brought together the Ministry of Housing and Water together, along with the Ministry of Local Government and Regional Development, and call it the Ministry of Communities, because his vision was to ensure that not only should Guyanese be given a plot of land for housing to build their homes, but to ensure that we have cohesive communities, that we have families, cohesive communities with proper roads, electricity, water, and also, Mr. Speaker, playgrounds. I want you to take a drive to the back of Perseverance, where we constructed in excess of 384 houses in many styles, the 2-flat, the bungalow. We even catered for those persons who are disabled, a plan that the PPPC never had for the housing sector. But, Comrade Speaker, I am happy to report that in reading the People's Progressive Party Civic Manifesto, and this is what they quoted in their manifesto. One of the hallmarks of the People's Progressive Party Civic have been the housing program, providing affordable housing to all Guyanese. The PPPC developed and distributed 112,761 house lots to Guyanese families, of which 80% went to low-income families. But Mr. Speaker, we had a financial assessment was done of the Ministry of Communities. And the report revealed by Raman McKay, the report revealed, Comrade Speaker, that developers between 2011 to 2015, the last day on the 15th of May 2015, that government would have sold in excess of 359 acres of land. And if you're to do the math, Mr. Speaker, 1 acre would give you an average of 5 house lots. So let's do the math. 359 by 5 would give you in excess of 1,500 house lots that could have gone to poor, low-income families. But comrades, these lands were sold to developers, in some cases under market value, right? And these very house lots, Comrade Speaker, today have not even seen one development, whether road, electricity, water, or even the construction of houses.
Thank you, Honorable Member. I would like to see you get some more time to conclude. So can someone?
Thank you. Comrade Speaker, I do move that the honourable member be given 5 minutes to conclude our presentation.
The extension. Thank you very much, Honorable Member. Honorable Member, you have 5 minutes to continue and conclude.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I will now take my attention to the water sector. And I want to report to this honorable House, Comrade Speaker, that many of the areas that are currently having water are now having water for the first time. And it's under yes, Comrade Speaker. And it's under the astute leadership of Dr. Van West Charles. So, Comrade Speaker, Comrade Speaker, what we noticed, Comrade Speaker, is that when this government came into office, rather than them working together to see how best they can improve the water sector, they got rid of the competent staff. The staff, Dr. Van West Charles, and also Mr. Leland Saul at Central Housing and Planning Authority. But Mr. Speaker, this is what I want to say, that in Region 4, over 20,000 residents in Dean and E-Field Sophia benefited from water for the very first time. And this is not only in Region 4. We heard what happened in Region number 9, when my comrade and colleague Vincent Henry shared what happened in Region number 9 for the first time. But you know, Mr. Speaker, I know my time is running. But I want to say to you, Mr. Speaker, that I wish to remind this House, the honorable members on the other side of the House, the scripture taken from Proverbs 6, verses 16 to 19. There are 6 things that the Lord hates, 7 that are an abomination to him: haughty eyes, a lying tongue, and hands, and it goes on and on. Mr. Speaker, in Budget 2020, we have been told of the many measures to help the less fortunate. But what is of concern to me, Mr. Speaker, is that yes, Comrade Speaker, what is of more concern to me, Mr. Speaker, is that this government was accused of political gimmicks when we distributed house lots. But it is the ordinary people who benefited from those house lots. The public servants, the single mothers, the nurses, the teachers, those are the people who benefited. And to hear my honorable members on the side of the House saying, when they came to government, that they're going to refund those people their monies, it's an abomination. And I'm saying here to the people of Guyana, you have a right to proper housing and accommodation, and you must not accept any refunds from the Ministry of Water and an abomination. And I'm saying here to the people of Guyana, you have a right to proper housing and accommodation, and you must not accept any refunds from the Ministry of Water and Housing. It is your constitution.